Welcome to the Swipe Right Effect podcast, where we will be sharing with you the power to get unstuck by swiping right on yourself. Your host, author C.K. Collins, aka Kelly, gets personal with her guests, sharing stories of themselves getting unstuck with wisdom and guidance. Where do you feel stuck? Are you waiting to get your new life started after a big change? You've come to the right place. So with that said, let's get started.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking in today with the Swipe Right Effect. We have a wonderful guest today whom we're going to talk about dating. Her name is Sandy Wiener, and she's an internationally known TEDx speaker. I've watched the TEDx, it's great. She's a dating relationship coach for women over 40. She's also an author and podcast host. She's the author of Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love, and Choice Points in Dating. Sandy believes it's never too late to go on your last first date. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you, Kelly. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm we're excited to, me and all my girlfriends, get all this advice from Sandy Wiener, the expert. One of the things that really interested me, when I was reading your bio and just basically reading all about you, was the why does attraction lead to poor choices? And so I really wonder, can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think what people get wrong a lot in dating is they think if they have to feel those sparks. You know, you see that all the time in dating profiles. I'll know it when she walks in the room. I have to have my heart fluttering. And if you watch any of those shows on matchmaking that are out on Netflix now, they're all like, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that immediate spark hit me over the head. And here's the problem with that spark is that the spark is usually a bad sign. It is a sign that you have anxiety around that person, because that's what those butterflies are.
Wow.
The attraction that we have is usually an unhealthy attraction that's hardwired from our childhood. And so what happens is we grow up with our family of origin, whoever our caretakers were, and we get the good and the bad and everything in between. And our attachments romantically start from those early attachments to our parents, our caregivers. And so let's say people who had a parents who got divorced early on, or parent who died even. I had a client whose father died when she was young. She had a fear of abandonment. And so she would get attached to men in that way. She'd be attracted to men who actually were not available. So she would keep recreating the attachment that she couldn't have with her father, hoping that somehow she could take this unavailable man and make him attached to her and make him available. So subconsciously, we're attracting the worst of our childhood attachments and trying to heal that attachment injury through our relationships. And this is why so many relationships fail. So first of all, we have to rewire our brain for healthy attachment and healthy attraction.
Wow, that's amazing. So it makes me rethink my entire dating career. So I bet everybody feels that way right now.
Well, when I first learned about this, it was shocking to me, but it also very enlightening, because you realize that we can't really help who we're attracted to. Like the people who always say, I'm attracted to the bad boy, I'm attracted to the narcissist, I'm attracted to people I can't get. And when we heal and we feel good about ourselves and we really have that increased self-worth, which is pretty much what I wrote about in my first book, is how to get there, then we have healthier attachments to everyone, including our friendships, including our work relationships. We're able to set boundaries because it's coming from a place of self-worth and self-knowledge. So we are securely attached within ourselves, and that helps us to attract a securely attached person. And those people usually show up as what we might call boring, because they're predictable, they're consistent, They show up in a crisis. So these are all the things that make a good partner, but they don't have that, oh my God, anxiety inducing butterflies
Right.
at first, but it can grow with the right connection.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced that too, that the butterflies weren't there in the beginning, but developed. And that did definitely feel like a much healthier relationship. And in one of my former podcasts, we talked about pacing a relationship and how it really helps to make it go slow. And so I guess if you don't have the butterflies in the beginning, it probably makes that easier to follow through with. Yeah,
for sure.
So thank you for that. I was also reading about how we can get paralyzed by a paradox of too much choice. And I've actually seen on social media several people talking about this, why dating apps are not healthy, because it's just too much choice and the grass is always greener on the other side and all of those cute metaphors. And I feel like there's got to be a lot of truth behind that.
Yeah, there definitely is. There's a lot of science behind that. And Barry Schwartz wrote a book many years ago called The Paradox of Choice. And really what the premise was is when we have too many choices, we get paralyzed. We cannot choose. And if you think about anybody who's done a home renovation, and I read about this in the book, you're given usually three things to choose from, because if somebody came to you and gave you 500 paint colors and 60 doorknobs, and the choices are endless when you're designing a home. And so the designer and the architect make some choices, and then they present you with about three, because that's all our brains can really handle. And then we choose. And so when we have too much choice, we shut down, or we keep looking for that next best thing. And I remember living in Manhattan, which was full of choices in my 20s in terms of men and women, and people would always be choosing up, like, oh, I don't need to really make this relationship work because there's always somebody else. And while that is true, there are more people out there. If something doesn't work, we have to really work on giving people a chance and not dismissing someone because of one little tiny thing that may be absolutely nothing in the long run. And so it's finding that balance between having some choice. I like to say don't balance more than three people at a time, just in terms of speak to them on the dating apps, go on a date or two or three, don't have sex with any of them, but just have them there so you can start to see who starts to rise to the top. And if none of them do, then find your next three. But if you're balancing 16 and you have an inbox that's full and you don't even know who you like and who you don't like, a lot of people burn out because they're just so overwhelmed. And so limit your choices.
Yeah, I'm the queen of the pause button on dating apps, because if I meet somebody I'm interested in, I automatically pause. I don't even mention it to them. I just take a minute, as my friend Trish says, take a minute and kind of work through, what does it feel like to be with this person, and spend some time with them. And I think after my divorce, had to learn to completely retrust my intuition all over again, because there was betrayal. I had been gaslighted, and I knew inside something was wrong, but I was told nothing's wrong. And so it took a while when I went back into the dating world to trust that intuition, and which I'm assuming you are calling the inner GPS in relation to your bio. So do you find that with your coaching clients, that a lot of them do have trouble trusting their inner GPS?
Yeah, I think that most of us were taught that our intuition is not to be trusted, or we say we have a gut, we feel it in our gut, and our gut is actually fear. It's based on past experiences. So if you were gaslit and you were abandoned or betrayed, you are going to look for signs of that in the next person, which may or may not be there. You may actually fabricate that because one little thing happens and you immediately draw the conclusion that this person is gaslighting you, even though it just might have been a misunderstanding. And so you're saying, well, that was a gut feeling. I knew it in my gut. So I just am walking away from this person. So what
Mm,
I encourage people to do is to get really clear on who you are at your core. What are your values? What is it that you define your life by? How do you align with who you are? And so there's some exercises in the book about really finding out, like starting out with what annoys you, what do you hate, what pisses you off, because the things that get you really angry are because a value of yours is not met, like a need of yours is not met. So if it really bothers you that people are gaslighting, for example, or not telling the truth, that's because truth is really important to you. If a person is being fake and you hate fakeness in people, that's because authenticity is important to you. And so you start to get aligned with what are my core values. And then I have people also go through their day starting to trust their intuition about what feeds them and what drains them. So if you're making a choice for breakfast, for example, like I'll wake up some mornings and it'll be an oatmeal day. And so that's literally what feeds me, feeds my mouth, but it's also a choice that I'm making. Like, do I feel like oatmeal, or do I feel like an egg, or do I feel like a yogurt?
mm,
And you're saying, okay, this is a choice I'm making. I'm making a choice to go for a walk at this time of day. I'm making a choice not to pick up the phone when this person calls. I'm making a choice to end a conversation, to not let people pick my brain when they want when they want free business advice. These are all choices. And so when you're not choosing, you're really following what other people think you should do. And that's how most of us were raised, that you shut your mouth, you do what's polite, you be kind. And that is not a healthy way to go through life. So when you're going and searching for a mate, it becomes really complicated because whose choice is it? Is it your choice? Is it your mother's choice? Is it your friend's choice? Your friends are
right.
going to tell you, you made terrible choices last time. Oh, you're too good for that person. Oh, and those are not necessarily true for you. And so
Right.
beginning to trust you and then seeing, was I right? Did this feel right?
Yeah, I think I talk about in my book too, the power of choice. Like it is such an, innate part of our everyday existence. And yet some people get so stuck because they can't make a choice. They can't move
Mhm.
forward. And so I try to say every chance I get, like, not making a choice is making a choice. Like,
Very true.
yeah. And so I think, when you're, at least when you go forward, you're in motion, but you're right. The core values are so important. And I know how confusing it is from personal experience, like putting yourself back out there again after having been in a long-term relationship, whether that's marriage or not, or death of a spouse, even the vulnerability that comes from that. And I mean, it is a courageous act, but the vulnerability of putting yourself back out there again can throw you off what maybe you would normally be a very centered person. And then all of a sudden those butterflies kick in or the fear, like you said. I think it's such an interesting process to walk through. And
Yeah.
I definitely feel much different now in the dating world than I did 5 years ago. And I think doing all of the work and making sure you're good inside and you have self-love and you're confident and all of that is such an important first step, or first 30 steps, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to say that I'm glad you brought up that it's a process,
Mm,
because coming out of the gate, I mean, I don't know anybody who comes out with total confidence and trusts their choices and doesn't have nervousness. I mean, it is scary to get back out there. It's scary if you've been with one person to think about getting naked again, about, getting naked both physically and also emotionally. Like, how do you trust? How do you build a connection? What do you share about your life? I mean, in the beginning, the things that I shared on dates after my divorce, I would never share now because I have boundaries and because I've healed. But
Mm,
then I thought I should tell people about my marriage and why it fell apart and talk about my ex-husband. I'm not even mad at him anymore. So it's like when you're kind of, wounded and bonding on your wounds, that's an unhealthy bond. But we all do things like that as a way to just get back out there and to learn from our experiences. And so it's really be kind to yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and just keep reflecting on what am I learning? How am I growing? What am I learning about the people I'm dating? And how am I applying the learning as I go? Because that's the key. It's not coming out of the gate with knowing everything.
right. Do you feel like there is a good timeline that you recommend, don't date until it's been this long, or is it 100% just how fast the person heals?
I think that we don't completely heal when we start dating. I think it's a mistake to wait for that. I think that I also don't believe in rules, so I don't think there is a one size fits all
I love
in.
that.
I'm a principles kind of gal, and I don't even know why I said gal because I never use that word, but I believe in principles. And so if you're living by your principles of I may be dating casually at the beginning because I just want to get out there. What I find is a lot of people wait until they're fully healed and all cooked and all ready, and it's too long. It's first of all, you're never fully healed. You're never a fully whole person that has no more learning and growing to do. And so, in a great relationship, you're going to continue to heal because relationships bring out everything in you, all the stuff that you're trying to hide and put masks on and hide behind, it's going to come out. And so every trigger you have, everything that you thought you were all good now, they're going to come back. And so I recommend that, yes, you do some reflection, do some self-reflection, and really work on how you're going to share about your life now and how you're going to connect. And it really helps when you work with a coach like me because I can help you to be ready to date at whatever level you are and to get the most out of the dating experience so that you make less mistakes and you have the ability to see if this person is a good fit or isn't a good fit. It's hard to know on your own. And a lot of times we dismiss amazing people because it's the wrong person, it's the right person at the wrong time, or there's
Right.
just so many factors that go into this. But yeah, don't wait until your kids have grown, you've lost 20 pounds, all the things that just there's too many people out there who just think that they have to wait and wait and wait. And then
Right.
they wake up one day and say, oops, I forgot to date.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of friends like that. I think most friends, when we're sitting around talking about it, we do reflect on, yeah, maybe I went out a little too soon, or I got a little too serious on this one too fast, or, and I've started trying to get everybody just to look at it and like what you were saying. And this is what I learned from it. And I'm moving on.
Yeah.
So, and I think, you have to do that to a degree with your pain from like what you said, whatever came from childhood or whatever came from your marriage, or the pain of having lost someone. It's, it is a process. And I wonder if you, I think the boundaries, I'm really curious about the boundaries because I feel like that is something I didn't know how to do in the beginning. So no matter what point I'm in my recovery from any of these things, there should be boundaries in place if you're self-aware or in love with yourself and all of these things. Can you talk a little bit about boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I teach courses on boundaries, so it's a lot to
Let's
say,
talk
but I
about
think,
that.
yeah, I love boundaries. I realized after my divorce that this was the biggest life lesson for me is I married somebody who didn't respect boundaries.
Mm.
I was in a family of origin with people who didn't respect boundaries. And so I remember as my marriage was ending, I was taking a class on journaling that was taught by two therapists. And it was sort of a really good healing for me. And I didn't feel safe putting my journal like in a drawer because I thought my husband would find it. And so I got a lockbox and put
Wow.
that, hid the key. So that just gives you a little clue as to what our relationship was like. And so I then, after divorce, my daughter was violating my boundaries. And I was like, okay, universe, I get the hint. I need to study boundaries. And so I began to really study how to say no without being mean, how to really, it starts with getting clear. Again, with the inner GPS, it's a similar process. First, get clear about who are you, what's important to you. And when it comes to dating, that includes the pace of a relationship. I know myself. I know I get attached too easily. If I have sex, I will lose my mind and I'll think that he's great, even though there's 100 red flags. These are all important things. Or I
Sex
know
equals no
that,
red flags. That's okay.
yeah, right. Well, some people can have sex and not bond like that.
Mm.
But if you know yourself and that you know that that's not a good thing for you, then don't do it, and then express that. So when you know I'm an introvert, I need time to recharge, express that.
Yeah.
If you're on a 5-hour date, you're going to have a vulnerability hangover. You're going to have like an emotional hangover the next day or the next hour. I mean, I was at a conference this weekend, and I needed some time to regroup because I talked a lot and I was around a lot of people. And I know for myself, I just need that time to recharge in quiet. And so the more you know about all the things that you need to protect, then you can let people know this doesn't work for me. Can I tell you what works better? That's a good
Mm.
boundary to have. And you can thank people for trying to help you or everybody wants what they want, right? So somebody's going to want sex before you're ready, for example. You can say, I'm really attracted to you if you are. I'm really attracted to you. And there's a part of me that would love to sleep with you right now, but I know that that never worked for me in the past. So what does work for me is monogamy before sex and STD testing. So when we're ready for that, let's have that conversation. But until then, we can do whatever is okay before sex, like then you have that discussion.
Yeah.
So you protect those things with boundaries. The other thing that boundaries come up for in the beginning of a relationship, in the beginning of dating, is sharing about your life. And I
Mm.
find that people overshare, which is a boundary crossing. So whether somebody's doing it to you or you're doing it to them, it's something to be aware of, that you're sharing more than people can really handle before they know you. And
Mm.
so I believe in sharing in layers, and I work with clients on what does layer one look like, what does layer two look like, and what does layer three look like. So layer one, somebody says, why'd you get divorced? And you say, well, we really wanted it to work, but unfortunately we drifted apart, and I'm really looking forward to finding love
Mm.
again, whatever. Very short, no
Yeah.
details. That's it. And then you change the topic, or you say, what about you? What are you looking forward to? That's it.
Yeah.
Then layer two, if you're starting to really trust this person and you want to get to know them better, you can say maybe why it grew apart, or that you went to therapy and tried to make it work. Not too much information.
Mhm.
Layer three is we had this massive crisis and he gaslighted me and all these things
Yeah.
that, that stuff about your marriage, that wouldn't come out until you really have built trust, because people earn your stories. And so
Mm.
those boundaries of, I'm not comfortable sharing that when somebody pushes and says, but I want to know. You're not really telling me enough. And that's something I would share with somebody once I get to know them better. That's a boundary. So I had a client who, so I do work with some men, mostly women, but in the last few years, I've worked with a few wonderful men, and one of them had gotten into a great relationship while he was working with me. And then as he wanted to move it towards moving in together, it broke up. She ended up going back to an ex-boyfriend and he was devastated. So he came back to me and I said, I want you to write down how you're going to share about your last experience in dating, because that relationship just ended. And women, because you're ready to date again, or you think you're ready to date again, women need to feel comfortable with you and know that you've done some healing, or what are you sharing? Are you oversharing? Well, he wrote up this whole thing about exactly what happened and that he set boundaries and she violated his boundary. And I'm like, you cannot share this on a date. You cannot share that. And he's like, but it's the truth. And I said, the truth is not for sharing now. And he really struggled with it. He wanted to share it all. And I understand it. I understand the desire to be authentic by sharing it all, but it's not okay. I'm telling you, it is not okay.
Wow. I love hearing that, because I do feel like, or when people early on start dating, there is that need to just say it all and just get it over with. And it really, I got to the point where I would say, you know, not really ready to talk about that. Let's talk about who we are now. And that was kind of my transition. Even if I didn't say the part of that makes me uncomfortable, I would say, let's not think about the past. Let's think about who we are right now and, you know, what we want to do.
So I love bringing it back to the present. I think for some people, it feels dismissive if you say, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
You can acknowledge that that's a great question. You know, I don't feel so comfortable talking about that right now because but I feel more comfortable talking about who we are than who we were. But if we get to know each other, I mean, it's just kind of, you want to make sure that they don't feel criticized for asking you that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Thank you. I love that.
Sure.
Look at you coaching. Okay. Well, I don't want to run out of time. I want to make sure we get to this last one. So, you have your book. I'll go back to that, Choice Points in Dating. And, but you know, all of this is to get to your last first date, your podcast, your books, your coaching. So do you have some tips that you would like to share on how to get to your last first date other than hire you?
Definitely hire me. It really is a process. And so again, going back to who are you? What do you need? And, I have exercises to define your must-have list, your deal breaker list, because people usually get that wrong. I know that before I did this work, I used to just kind of have this gut feeling, this person is for me, isn't for me, but I had no clarity. The more clear you can be, and I gave a whole workshop on must-have and deal breaker lists last night for my coaching group, the Women of Value Club. Even if you've been doing this for a long time, it is a living list. It is a list that you will continue to tweak as you start to date and continue to date and realize, okay, I thought I needed these things. I thought they were must-haves, but they're nice to haves. What really is a must-have is this character trait that wasn't on my list before. And so ultimately, when you really are clear, you will have a felt sense of who this person is when they show up in your life. Even if they look a little boring in the beginning, you'll have a felt sense of like being home. Somebody who can keep your heart safe, somebody who makes you feel that you can be your best and they can be their best. And I like to say that a really good relationship really is about mutual teaching and learning, mutual trust, and mutual inspiration. When you have those three elements, you really have the right ingredients for your last first date. and give it time, because so many people just want to move too quickly when there's a little bit of conflict. So learning how to talk about hard things, to be vulnerable, to really open, because guarding yourself doesn't work. That's what my TED Talk is about. It's really, really important to try to bring more of the real you out early on so that you connect to the authenticity in somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. The 3 traits. Can you just touch real quickly on the Women of Value and what that group does?
Sure. So I started this club many years ago. It used to be called the Inner Circle. I just wanted a place for women to come once a month to have like an hour-and-a-half workshop on Zoom to talk about the topics that are the most important in our lives when it comes to dating and relationships. And so I'm hoping next month to talk about intimacy with a podcast guest whose specialty is intimacy, and how to talk about intimacy. We talk about vulnerability. We talk about so many things that nobody really teaches you unless you're really part of something like this. So there's a link to it on my website, lastfirstdate.com. If you just go to the group coaching link, it's a really low price, high value. It makes people feel less alone, and also walking away with tons of knowledge. And I'll just share a real quick story, if I can, about one of my clients from that group. She's been with us for a while, and she struggled a lot with dating in the beginning. She's just a lovely, kind-hearted woman who had dated a lot of controlling men, and men who were sexually dysfunctional and not willing to really work on healing anything and making her wrong. And through the group, she learned a ton about herself and about the kind of men she should be looking for. She changed her list. And she ended up going out on a date with a guy who was 10 years younger, lived about 60 miles away, a guy she never would have considered. But because she was so clear about the type of person she wanted to be with, she went out, she took a chance, and they've been together 6 months now. It's like the best relationship she's ever been in.
Wow.
And, there are times when she feels like, are you sure you want to date somebody 10 years older than you? But he is emotionally mature. He is in the same place in life as she is, and they are amazing. And she said last night in the group, she was talking about how they could just go outside and do yard work together, and it's fun. So when you can get to that point and you can enjoy grocery shopping, going to Costco, doing yard work together.
Yeah. You
That's
just
what
want to
you're
be
looking
together,
for.
whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that story.
Thanks.
So, okay. So one more time, the latest book is Choice Points in Dating. And your first book was Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love. And
Right.
I feel like I learned so much today. I really hope people will reach out to you and use you as a coach and get your sage advice for sure. So one more time, your website is lastfirstdate.com, correct?
Correct. And I have a free gift for your
great.
audience. You can get the first 2 chapters of Choice Points in Dating and learn how to make healthier choices in your love life. Just go to lastfirstdate.com/book bonus and grab a copy.
Book bonus. I love that. I'm going to do that. Thank you, Sandy, for coming on. I'm really honored that you shared your time with us because I think you're amazing. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Kelly.
Kelly's book is available on Amazon and through your local bookstores. Look for the Swipe Right Effect, the power to get unstuck. Kelly's interviews with 10 friends from around the world unlock powerful truths to getting your new life started.